Hello there, this is another one of my random ramblings, and it comes from the situation that so many of us are facing now. It's Sunday afternoon now, and everything is absolutely peaceful and perfectly quiet. There's hardly a car passing by, and the world seems to be so still. And of course, this is because all of us are facing a different way of living, and some of us perhaps are finding that a little bit challenging. Perhaps, we're used to being out and about and doing all sorts of bits and pieces, and now we have to stay home. Perhaps we're so accustomed to work, and work is a big part of our lives, and that's changed. Perhaps we've been furloughed, perhaps we've been laid off, perhaps we're just having to work from home, and again, it's different and challenging. Some of us might be used to being at school 5 days a week, and that's gone. Suddenly we're at home trying to find things to do. Mums and dads are obviously finding that perhaps a little bit challenging as well. So obviously, we're looking at changes in our lifestyle, and that can be very hard. It can be very challenging. It can feel as though the rug's been pulled away from us. And one of the dangers is that we find ourselves, in a sense, thinking, well, what on earth am I meant to be doing? It can be too peaceful. It can be too quiet. Yes, there will always be floors that need cleaning, or perhaps drawers or wardrobes that need resorting, or gardens that need things doing to them, but the danger is that we can find ourselves afflicted with a sort of listlessness. I was talking to someone the other day about this, and they said something that actually reminded me of a passage from a book by Douglas Adams, part of his Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. This is about someone who accidentally becomes immortal. I'll just read this paragraph. In the end, it was the Sunday afternoons he couldn't cope with, and that terrible listlessness which starts to set in at about 2:55, when you know you've had all the baths you can usefully have that day, that however hard you stare at any given paragraph in the papers, you'll never actually read it, or use the revolutionary new pruning technique it describes, and that as you stare at the hands of the clock, they will move relentlessly on to 4 o'clock, and you will enter the long, dark tea time of the soul. Okay, perhaps that's putting it a little bit over the top, but actually someone was saying to me that their household, suddenly the number of baths that everyone's having in them every day have increased dramatically. As I was thinking about this, I was musing about other ways of life, especially thinking about my own time in seminary. That's the college that you go to when you are training to be a priest. At the age of 18, I was sent off to the Venerable English College in Rome. I'd never been abroad, I'd never even been on a plane. It was quite a dramatic experience. And I spent 8 years of my life there. One of the things about seminaries that sometimes people say is that they can be compared to prisons. And this is because they live by a very strict timetable, a strict regime. You are limited in what you can do. Now, I don't think that my college was that bad. We were given quite a lot of freedom. There was quite a lot of liberty. But we did have a very firm structure to our day. It started at 7:15 in the morning with morning prayer. Then you'd all be in the refectory for breakfast together, after which most of the students would go off to the university for a morning full of lectures from 8:30 to about 12:15. Then you'd get back. Sometimes there would be a mass at 12:30, an optional one, and then lunch was at 1 o'clock. After lunch, being Italy of course, we then had 2 hours of nothing, the siesta. The siesta wasn't compulsory, but being quiet so that other people could was. After that then, perhaps there'd be seminars after 4 o'clock. Some students, like myself in my latter years, had our lectures after the siesta in the evening. Then sometimes perhaps there'd be a community mass or some other service. If not that, there'd be evening prayer. Before supper at, when I was there, 8 o'clock though, that was then moved back to 7:30. After supper, we'd all go into the chapel for a visit to the Blessed Sacrament, and then the day was more or less done. Some days of the week there'd be a prayer group or perhaps other things that would go on. But that structure of the day, very much focused around those moments of prayer, it did give a pattern to the day. And one of the things that people say when they come out of, say, military life, or out of prison, or out of seminaries, is that it can be a bit challenging when you have a sudden freedom. The day is completely unstructured. You have to create your own structure, and you need quite a lot of discipline to actually do that. One of those things that gives structure to the day of any priest and many Catholics and many other people is the pattern of prayer. Every priest, when you're ordained, in fact you make this promise when you're ordained deacon, promises to pray the divine office, the liturgy of the hours. That's prayers that are set down by the church for certain times of the day. There are 5 prayers that we have to say each day. Morning prayer, obviously in the beginning of the day, prayer during the day, some point during it, evening prayer in the evening, and night prayer or compline, last thing at night, the last prayer before going to bed. The 5th prayer is something called the Office of Readings, and that can be said at any time during the day. But the idea is that those forms of prayer are meant to give a rhythm to the day. I think there's something in that for all of us, especially at this time. We need to find new rhythms and new patterns to our day. That can only be good for us. It might be a bit challenging, it might take a bit of discipline, but I think it's something that perhaps we can all look at and embrace in our lives to find a new structure, a new pattern for our day. And I would recommend that perhaps you try and find those moments of prayer to punctuate the day. Perhaps morning, midday, before lunch, sometime in the evening, perhaps before tea, last thing at night. Now, you can use the divine office, the prayer of the church. Obviously, this is the printed thing, which I don't think many people use nowadays, because there is a wonderful app that you can get for computers, for tablets, even for smartphones. It's called Universalis. I'll put a link to it in the things below here. And if you simply download that app onto your smartphone, it will give you these prayers of the divine office, arranged just so that you can read through them, one thing after the other, no flicking about from one part of the book to the other. So it makes it very easy. That divine office, though, might be a bit too much for some people. It might be a bit too wordy for some people. You may simply just like to schedule some times of silence to punctuate your day. Or you might want something in between. Over the next week, what I'll try and do on this YouTube channel is to upload some small prayer services, a morning prayer, a midday prayer, an evening prayer. There's already one night prayer on, but I might put another one on. And I might do a couple, perhaps one which is something akin to the divine office, perhaps if you just want to actually follow that prayer rather than be reading it yourself, and also perhaps some different types of prayer. But I hope that perhaps these might help us in finding new patterns and structures. There'll be other things that we will do to give pattern to our day, perhaps phone calls to relatives or friends, obviously our own meals, our moment of exercise whenever we fit that in. But let's try and find some pattern today, some structure. It can give us a great deal of comfort, and even though it can seem as though it's constraining us, oh, it's such and such a time, I've got to go and say my prayers. Actually, I believe that having that structure can free us up. It can free up our minds and hearts to be able to deal with things and to be able to cope with things. So watch this space, but have a look at your timetable. Think about those moments of prayer that can fit every day. Good luck with it. Keep on going. I always say that. That's the thing we've all got to do now. Stay home, pray at home, and trust that the Lord is always with us. God bless. Thanks for watching, and Arthur and I will see you soon. Bye for now.